Hello and welcome to another Friday faction focus video. And tonight, myself and Tom are doing the Eaters of World, the World Eaters.
Kill main burn.
The t-shirts. Blood for the Blood God.
Do you know what,
Skull
actually?
for the Skull Throne.
I'm slightly ashamed that I only literally just noticed you were wearing that shirt, and I don't know why, because it's actually blatantly obvious.
Shows my dedication.
Yeah, well, I had the awkward one the other week, so it's good we got a few shirts floating. I need to get one with like a Templar cross on it or something. That'd be good. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
So in this series, we go through a faction that you guys have chosen, and we run through a bit of the background, a bit of the story, how the army plays, and what you can expect going against the World Eater army. We'll also go into the models and some of the characters as well. So, Tom, as you take a sip of beer,
Yes.
would you explain who the World Eaters are? If you can.
I'll have a stab at it because I digress to your superior knowledge on this subject. So anyway, I'll start with kind of the beginning of it, obviously, because it's nice to sort of know where they come from. Because obviously they used to be a loyal Space Marine Legion a long time ago in the course of the sort of history of 40k. They were the 12th Legion, is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
They used to be known as Warhounds, and essentially they then went to go and obviously the Emperor went to find their leader, which was Angron on a planet.
Primarch,
Angron. Yeah, Primarch, which I think is pronounced Nucari or Nuceria, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And they obviously found him. He came up to sort of take over the Legion in a nutshell. After a bit of persuasion from Mr. Khan, who's a character we'll come to shortly. And yeah, so he took control of the Legion, and then throughout this particular period of the Heresy Great Crusade, he eventually fell to sort of the Chaos side, or the horror side, basically. And then the Legion essentially gradually descended into becoming worse than they already were. Which is pretty bad, because they were pretty renowned for being pretty brutal, to sort of say the least. So eventually ended up in them becoming sort of patrons to the blood god Khorne.
Yep.
Which then obviously totally corrupted them, and they became sort of even more psychopathic killers than they were in the first place. So that, I think, from an origin point of view, that kind of, in a very thin line of explanation, that's kind of how they kind of got to that point. And obviously post that, they're essentially roving bands of berserkers, essentially, that may join up to larger scale fights if they want to come and fight some people.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So
it's a very sort of, yeah.
I'm impressed.
Good.
I'll kind of go through a couple other bits as well that you may or may not have mentioned. I mean, maybe, Tom, this might also be educational for yourself.
It will probably be.
Because I found some of this quite educational. So, yeah, as Tom said, they're original founding legion in the Great Crusade. And known as the Warhounds, which were, their paint scheme was blue and white.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very nice, or white and blue, depending how you want to look at it, head to toe or toe to head. Known as Warhounds, united with Angron, we mentioned. So a bit about Angron. He landed on a planet Tom mentioned and was a gladiator.
Yep.
And did a very Spartacus-based revolution and revolted and brought down the High Riders, as they were known, with his gladiator pals. Had a pretty good campaign, as far as I can tell, and basically they were cornered. Angron was ready to fight and die with his gladiator brothers, and then the Emperor just whips him away, teleports him up, and says, "No, Angron, you're not going to die. All your best buddies are going to die." And took him up to the flagship and locked him away in solitary. And so the Warhounds, obviously, I think that's the thing about a lot of these founding legions, is when they're united or they've got all this anticipation that they're going to meet their gene father, and they're going to model themselves on their gene father, because their gene father is the be all and end all. And unfortunately, the Warhounds had Angron. And Angron at this point was pretty broken as he is. He had been fitted with what is going to be kind of mentioned a few times, I think, in the video, butcher's nails. So the butcher's nails, for those who don't know, are like a parasite or a device that goes into the brain and essentially will constantly hammer and cause pain for the person who has the butcher's nails, unless they are doing something violent. And in that case, there's an element of ecstasy and peace. So it kind of keeps them driving and keeps them going. And of course, the Warhounds wanted to mimic their father and get as close to their father as they can. So Angron pretty much went, look, boys, have some of this. Hammer these into your heads.
I've got the real deal.
And, yeah. So yeah, it was essentially a cheap knockoff they had in comparison to what Angron had. And they all installed the butcher's nails, except for the librarians. There was a couple of experiments with the librarians that have the butcher's nails. Unfortunately, it kind of backfired, and they caused there was a few casualties within the Legion. And so they basically went, no more librarians. You are not going to have butcher's nails anymore. So the librarians were the only ones, as well as some of the original dreadnoughts, I'd imagine, that didn't have butcher's nails. So they were the same ones. So Great Crusade happens. Horus says, "Hey, Angron, you know that time our father took you away from your death that you had planned. Yeah, well, I'm kind of doing a revolt. Do you want to side?" And Angron probably grunted and snorted a bit, and then went, "Yeah, sure, why not? I love killing things. Let's do it."
Because it is worth saying that he was one of the first ones to sort of say, "Yeah, I'm on board with this as well." I think because he was just like, he's really angry with the Emperor, really deep down. I think.
Yeah, I think it was only a matter of time, really, wasn't it?
Yes.
Angron, even if Horus didn't revolt, Angron probably kicked off.
Because I presume the butcher's nails were quite frowned upon as well. That's the other thing.
Yes. So, on another heresy side, so we're doing a bit of heresy before we get into 40k, because I think it's quite important, Tom, that we kind of build up the history and the backstory before we kind of see where they are now. And before the heresy, Leman Russ went to reprimand Angron, which is, I think the conflict was the Night of the Wolves, and basically went, look, Angron, no more putting nails in your men, they're going crazy. And the Space Wolves and World Eaters essentially had a massive brawl, big battle, and lots on both sides probably got killed. But essentially at the end of it, Angron buffed up Leman, pinned him down. Leman was like, look around you, and Space Wolves are just surrounding him with their bolters and their guns aimed towards him. And went, look, your army is just fanatics and crazy men. Mine are actually soldiers. And they both went their own way. But yeah, there was a conflict before the heresy, so it would happen anyway.
Definitely.
And then Horus heresy happens. Off to the eye, and we'll get into that a little bit as it goes. But yeah, I think we can both agree. World Eaters definitely they tend to throw themselves at everything. There's not, especially in the heresy, there wasn't really that many tactics, and even less in modern 40k.
Although it's probably worth saying, without putting down too much, they did have a lot of martial skill in actual combat fighting. I think and I think the one thing that they sort of respected was the honour of the fight. I think as well a bit, if I recall, because they'd like to have maybe not honourable all the time, but I think they respected a good fighter. I think that was kind of obviously some Templars may have duelled some individuals within the ranks, and some chains may have been exchanged, and the little idea about attaching weapons to your body, I don't want to say anything too much. I don't want to incriminate my my chapter too much. But
association.
But they were known for their combat prowess. It wasn't just like their tactics were a bit because they were always known as really great assault troops as well. That's the thing, but they were pretty unsubtle with tactics, but quite good with actual fighting. That's the thing. They were very good fighters. So
So we're going into a bit of background about World Eaters. I mean, it's such a large background that we're probably going to cover it throughout the video, so stay tuned.
I would say it's
We're
almost a
gonna
separate video.
yeah, we could do a little series on World Eaters.
Yeah.
I love these guys. So Tom, we've gone through the faction and a bit of the background, so we're going to do a bit more. What about collecting a World Eater army? If you were to collect a World Eater army, what would you put in your army straight away? And
Well,
have you collected World Eaters?
I will. I mean, have I collected them? I think you may remember I did have a force a long time ago. I mean, this is like super long time ago. We must be talking 20 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Where I sort of dabbled in them a little bit. Well, I dabbled in some chaos for a bit, and the first thing that took my fancy were I think it was the old Berserker kit, which were where they had a lot of running.
It's the current Berserker kit.
Is it still the same kit?
Yeah, still the same
is it?
kit.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe I haven't looked at one for a long time up close because I mean, you know, I would say that Berserkers would be the first thing that would go in my army, even before necessarily having a leader, because I think they're one of the most iconic World Eater infantry. You know.
Yep.
And the thing is, you know, you could just absolutely flood the battlefield with them because ultimately, okay, I mean, I wouldn't say they're the best unit in the game at the moment, but you know, they're fun. You know, you get lots of attacks, you get to fight multiple times, but yeah, if you're going to build a World Eater army, you have to have some Berserkers in it. I don't think you can sort of avoid it. And then you're looking at, you know, I mean, if you're going serious, you take someone like Khan, the Betrayer, you know, because he's a iconic World Eater piece of you know, leader. But also things like, you know, Terminator Lords with, you know, lots of nice weaponry on them, I would say are pretty good with that kind of thing, you know. And yeah, I mean, I suppose in the current lineup you could maybe some Executioners or something like that would be good.
Yep, yeah, Execution's a good choice, especially for World Eaters.
Yeah, I think it suits it. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, you know, you've got a bit of experience playing them, but you've probably got a lot more experience battling them.
Yes.
So, what's your experience battle? How do you find them as a force to battle against?
I mean, typically,
what is there to look out for?
Well, I mean, the assault phase is the main bit you have to watch out for, because, I mean, obviously, to be fair, the majority of the games that we've probably played has probably been Black Templars versus some form of, you know, either your Chaos Force normally includes your World Eaters, and when they sort of go up against them, yeah, we tend to end up having a bit of a Barney in the middle of the field with some chainswords crossing, and I do feel that probably the majority of the time Berserkers come out on top in a straight up combat because they just literally leak attacks.
Yeah, you know, I suppose that's a good term.
They just literally they attack. You know, they especially if you have a big unit of them, they generate attacks. That they obviously if they're playing against Imperium, they get Death of the False Emperor as well. So you're generating more attacks, and then when they finish, they're like, do you know what? I want to fight again. I want to have another go. Get on that merry-go-round and let's go. Let's put some more chainswords in, and I'd say that's what if they get in combat, which is obviously one of the key issues with the whole thing anyway. I think they are pretty scary actually, especially with some of the synergy you can do with some of the special rules, you know, stratagems as well. I think work. I think that's what I would work out, and obviously their characters as well. I mean, Khan's not, he's no sort of cakewalk to deal with really if he gets himself sort of in the wrong, especially if he gets himself in the correct unit. You know, I mean, obviously you don't put him against something silly, but even then he's got tools to deal with certain scenarios.
Yeah.
If I do recall, I mean, he does kill some of his own men sometimes.
Occasionally, he gets a bit carried away.
Collateral damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, obviously I haven't really played them, so I can't say how I would play them exactly. But from a point of view of facing them, I think, you know, things like that, their combat phases are pretty sick if they get going. I think personally, that's what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So from my experience playing them, so I've got a few thousand points of World Eaters, quite a varied army, and you essentially want to try and get your troops in as quickly as you possibly can. So use a rhino stand, I suppose. So you want to try and get in before you get shot, because as you know, Tom, or other people who might be watching this, you don't want to get caught berserkers locked into melee against your troops, because as you said, they tend to come out on top because there's this stupid amount of attacks.
Yeah.
And they are still Marines essentially, so they're pretty tough. And once you get one lot in, there's probably going to be more
Yeah.
stuff coming in, equally as violent. And Chaos Space Marines also have access to Helldrakes and Demon Princes.
Yeah.
So there is quicker ways to get in combat as well. And you have got fodder as well. So you've got cultists. So you've got all these tools to use in a World Eater army. And Khan Betrayer is, he's very cheap. I think I'm going to say he's 170 points. I'm probably going to be wrong with that, but that's what I'm going to say. And yeah, he is cheap. He does do a lot of nasty stuff. Of course, there is collateral damage, as we said. If you're in combat and a roll of a 1, he will attack one of his own men. And I don't think he knows better, to be honest.
No, he's just swinging his axe.
Just get carried away, bless him. Yeah, you get in the way, and I'm doing it. Your own.
Exactly. But yeah, I think I honestly think they're one of my more favourite Chaos forces. I think as well. I do like the that's one thing. Obviously, I played Black Templars, and it's a similar tactic for me. I like the combat phase. It's one of my favourite phases in the game, even though at the moment it's probably one of the most difficult ones to sort of get to function correctly, in your favour, because the amount of gunfire that's come around. So honestly, I feel a bit for probably pure World Eater players. It's probably quite tough, but if you enjoy it, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had, in my opinion, still. So
it's a very fun army to run. It's all in combat, and I like to say combat is a lot of fun compared to shooting, because you're straight up in their face. Sometimes you can see the panic on your opponent's face. It's like unit after unit starts charging in, and they're like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting this. What's going on?"
There's only one of them. 85 attacks.
I know, like things like so in the new book, Faith and Fury, the World Eaters have a section in there, and they can have butcher terminators. So they get an increase in strength, increase in attack, without fighting twice. It's pretty red butchers. Sorry, name went from my head for a minute. And so you can make terminators actually really quite nasty, especially being World Eaters to start with, and then you're giving them extra stuff and fighting twice like normal Khorne berserkers. It's pretty cool.
Definitely.
And previous as well, in 7th edition, there was a Demon King Codex.
Yeah.
So the Demon King Codex has come and gone. There's always a campaign to bring it back, because it was quite a popular one among Chaos players, where you could essentially have Khorne demons and Khorne marines and squish them all together and have an army. You can still kind of do that in 8th edition by having different detachments, but there were certain rules for Demon King, and it's definitely worth mentioning, because I think at some point it would be nice to see them return.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think it's one. Obviously there hasn't been 8th edition wise. There hasn't been a lot given to them as a force, I don't think, other than the Faith and Fury book, which is, in my opinion, I think they, for such an iconic force, I think they deserve something a bit more substantial than just a few pages in the book, personally.
Yeah.
But then you could say, you could say that about multiple, legions anyway. Really, I mean, it's unfair to sort of just say they deserve more, but I think they're pretty iconic out of all the legions, because of the way they operate. It's just slightly different, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. They've definitely got a theme, and I think at some point World Eaters will get a codex, and I believe it will probably look a bit like the Demon King Codex, maybe. Although Khan the Betrayer, strangely, was not in the Demon King Codex, which is a controversial move. Games Workshop there.
Yeah, it's true. Actually, I forgot about that. That's strange. Like I said, hopefully they'll have a more specific book like they did for Thousand Suns, Death Guard, and all that kind of stuff. So, with a bit of luck.
Fingers crossed. So, if we normally, when we go into sub-factions of a particular topic, for the World Eaters, there is a lot of war bands. So we're not going to go into the sub-factions and such, but I think it's worth mentioning a couple of the notable battles and notable characters that are in the World Eaters and their war bands. So, Tom, would you like to go first, or would you like me to go
first?
I
can only really think of one battle myself at the moment, so I don't know what you were going to pick. So
okay. I was going to say the Battle of Scalathrax.
Well, I will go with the First War of Armageddon if you want then.
Go for it, Tom. You go with First War of Armageddon.
Which I'm going to have to just get a couple of notes because it's I mean obviously it
Well,
was sorry it's gone.
do you want me to do the Battle of Scarafax while
Yeah,
you have
you,
a
yeah,
couple
you,
of
yeah. Do that first. That'd be fine. Yeah,
revise your
yeah.
notes,
That's fine.
and
That
hopefully
sounds
it
good.
will kind of
Yeah.
explain a bit more, maybe. So the Battle of Scarafax was one of the first notable engagements of World after the Siege of Terror. So obviously, as we all know, the Chaos Forces lost the Horus Heresy, and the World Eaters were in retreat. Khan the Betrayer had fallen at the walls of the palace. And as we get to retconned in the new books, he falls and he's basically carried by his comrades out of the scene onto the planet, off to be evacuated. And like I say, the World Eaters and all the Chaos Forces evacuated, fell into the Eye of Terror. And during this trip towards the Eye and into the Eye, Khan the Betrayer awakes, and being Angron's second in command, he assumes command of the World Eaters. They're all a bit battered, a bit bruised, and they come across the planet Scalathrax, which is being occupied by the Emperor's children. The planet is almost like an ice planet, I think. It's like a wintry planet. And the World Eaters are battling, Emperor's children are battling, and there's a bit of a stalemate and a bit of a pause in the war, in the battle. Sorry. And Khan the Betrayer, at this point, from being like the second in command, the voice of reason in the Great Crusade, now Khan is a madman. Frustration and nails have taken hold, and essentially he sees the World Eater all sheltering, recovering, rearming, and he's frustrated, he's angry, and he starts fighting his own men, gets a flamer, kills lots of the World Eaters, and gained the name Khan the Betrayer. So the repercussions of this is that Khan then goes and kills all the senior officers in the World Eater Legion, all the captains. Khan goes and kills all of them because Khan doesn't want the Legion to be led by someone who had the rank of captain, chapter master, whatever, in the Legion. He wants someone, if they're going to lead the Legion or lead a warband of World Eaters, to be it's through merit, not from any previous status. So after this, Scarafax basically destroys the World Eater Legion, as we know a Legion. They're basically split everywhere, they go off, they form war bands, they join other groups, the World Eaters as a Legion stop. So if you go on to like some 40k websites and look up World Eaters, and you see a list of all the war bands, there's so many war bands. They all went off and did their own thing. And Khan, essentially, he's just a one-man army. Occasionally, World Eaters would join him. Other World Eaters will come and join Khan. But it's normally quite foolish because Khan will potentially just turn on them anyway.
Yeah.
And so, the Legion just crumbled, and they all turned into war bands. And the issue with Chaos, generally in the lore, is that, especially with the World Eaters, they've got no structure at all. If they just challenge each other and end up slowly dwindling down, like they're constantly killing each other. So there's no hope for them to do anything too
No hope
amazing.
for replenishment.
No, there isn't. Well, they still recruit,
They still recruit.
and actually, so this is an important thing, which I think is quite cool about the World Eaters in the 30k in the Great Crusade. They didn't. So Angron didn't know the planet he was taken from for a very long time, and so the World Eaters didn't have any particular planet to recruit from. So they recruited from all these separate planets. So a lot of the World Eaters don't look the same. They might speak different languages to start with, and they were kind of united in battle. So it was a brotherhood of the blade, in the most basic terms, where a lot of, for instance, like the Ultramarines tended to be from a select planets, like so they come from the 500 worlds. World Eaters will come from everywhere, all different colours, all different languages, and they just went, look, if you can fight, you're one of us, and there you go. And so a lot of them, world eaters now are kind of recruited in that same kind of spirit, as it were. But anyway, that was about the Scarafax and a bit about the world eaters. And hopefully I've given you a bit of time to look up.
I'm going to do my best, all right, because you can probably help me a little bit here anyway. So basically, yeah, First War of Armageddon. So just one major point at this particular point in the kind of timeline is Angron's actually a demon prince by this point. Correct?
Yes.
So essentially, he's sort of, there's a space hulk called the Devourer of Stars, and obviously this is in the Eye of Terror at the moment, and Angron is trying to sort of bring together a kind of unified force of chaos, particularly obviously his kind of legion, obviously what's left of it anyway, to sort of battle Imperium of Mankind, because he kind of feels that's what he should, he wants to do. He wants to go and have a big campaign against the Imperium of Mankind, and sort of try and carve a bloody swathe through the stars basically against them.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, so he's managed to accumulate a lot of this force on this space hulk essentially, and from what I understand, the arrival actually at Armageddon isn't really by design, other than the fact that the Chaos Gods kind of put him there.
Yes.
That's kind of
it wasn't his
end
destination.
Yeah, it was. So they put him there, and to be fair, for Angron, it probably wasn't the best place to turn up really for him, as the story kind of goes on. But because also in this particular region, Logar Grimnar of the Space Wolves is sort of knocking about, so when obviously Angron hits the planet with everything that he's got, obviously it goes quite well for him, I think, to start with. It's, but he's sort of batting away, having a good old fight with some of his old adversaries. I imagine fighting the Space Wolves for him was probably quite a good thing, because he got a bit of revenge there. But I think from what I've read, he kind of thinks he's won before he's actually kind of finished the job. That's kind of how I read this anyway. And little known to him, because although this is obviously the first War of Armageddon, from what I gather, there's not actually a lot known about exactly what happened in the finer detail. But essentially, Logar Grimnard's actually recruited a kind of the Grey Knights, the Third Brotherhood of Grey Knights, to this battle, which obviously not a lot of people know about at all really by then anyway, because they're quite a small elite force that it's quite secretive. So obviously Angron's sort of feeling pretty confident that he's sort of got this lockdown, and he's gonna win it, no problems at all. And then essentially the Grey Knights turn up with I think it was 109 Grey Knights turn up exactly, for that's the Third Brotherhood. And obviously their specialty is demons, to say the least, and obviously Angron is currently a demon, so this is
Yep.
So obviously what ensues then is a pretty epic fight where Angron is just obviously he's a demon Primarch. He was pretty beastly before that happened, and so these essentially trying to take him down was probably one of the biggest fights of these Grey Knights' lives, basically. Obviously they do eventually manage to banish him back to the warp, by killing him. However, only 13 of that 109 survived.
Bit of a beast.
So, I mean, it's pretty amazing, because obviously you sort of read about Khan and sort of his abilities. It's not Khan, sorry, about Angron and his abilities, and he's, you don't really, I mean, to take down that many Grey Knights is something that's pretty, well, it's unheard of really, normally, and it just shows you the immense power and anger and brutality of this demon Primarch now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so essentially, but they do eventually just banish him to the warp essentially. So he's, from that point, he's kind of I don't know what actually the next thing that happens with him is, because obviously at that point he's kind of at the mercy of the Chaos Gods to be sort of brought back into existence.
Yeah. So he's in current lore.
Yeah.
Armageddon, obviously, that's the first War of Armageddon. Armageddon, you got War 2 and War 3.
Yeah.
Whereas Orcs versus Imperium. And in the current lore, there's still orcs on the planet fighting the Imperium. And Khorne demons also kind of being introduced onto Armageddon. And there's like a ritual to try and bring Angron back, which is
there we are.
halted.
Yeah.
So he's still lurking about somewhere, but unfortunately not able to manifest
he's got no
as he
form,
were.
no physical form at the moment. So, but
no, not at all. Right. So
I hope I didn't butcher that too badly.
No, Tom, that was pretty good, mate.
Good.
I think it's been a while since I've read the first War of Armageddon. You pretty much got it. I mean, the thing really to know is that the World Eaters hit really hard onto Armageddon, and they faltered. They basically stopped and went, "We've got this in the bag.
Yeah.
Let's make some big old Khorne symbols and mount up the skulls." And the Imperial forces like barricaded in and stuff. And then, like you said, they had a big counterattack planned, and it fell apart.
Yeah.
The only time that World Eaters followed through the attack, and it fell apart for them. So maybe that's something they should learn. And I think a lot of like World Eater tactics in the lore has come through the very basic tactics like flanking maneuvers, ambushes.
Yeah.
That is as far as they can possibly manage any patience, because once the butchers and nails take hold, they've got no control.
No.
They just go in and just keep hacking. So they need to set up the battle the best they can before the first bolt shell goes, and then they're like, "Arr!"
Yeah, because I imagine it's like a red mist essentially, isn't it?
Yes,
they just don't
exactly
see
that.
They don't see the bigger picture after that point. So
they just want to keep going. Yeah. So yes, our two battles. Now, Tom, do you want to talk about a particular character? There's a couple of characters that are in-game chaos for World Eaters, and there's a couple that obviously are in the mist.
I mean, obviously, I might just obviously you touched on Khan, and I actually think he's quite an interesting character personally. I think obviously before the Butcher's Nails complete, I mean, I think he's probably more interesting before the Butcher's Nails completely wrecked his mind, basically. And obviously, I imagine the madness of the war, because that's probably what really pushed it on. So obviously, I do recall one thing about Khan. Is obviously, I don't think we mentioned this earlier in the origin bit, but obviously when the Warhounds are trying to meet their Primarch, Angron in the hold of the Emperor's ship, if I recall correctly, he's not really very receptive to their advances of brotherhood.
Yeah.
Because I think they sent in, was it 3, 4, 5 people, something like that, of Marines that went in to sort of try and talk to him, and he killed them. There was no real kind of, because he had literally zero respect for them. He didn't care who he didn't care about the brotherhood or anything like that. However, the only one out of them that managed to sort of talk to him was Khan, and sort of explain to him about his legion and how he's their father, their gene father. They should, he should lead them. We all want to follow you and be, obviously, I think there was a small fight in there as well, but he kind of just about survived it long enough to kind of convey his thoughts across about the legion. And obviously, if you compare that Khan to the current Khan, there's a stark difference between those particular characters. But they always said that during the heresy that Khan was the only one that could really reason with Angron in any way, meaningful way. And I think that's quite an interesting thing. And then obviously his complete slip to the blood crazed killer that he becomes, because in all seriousness, the character of him, he's not really a character anymore. Really, he's just a killing machine.
It's very hard to get in character from him at the moment.
Because he's.
But yeah, you're right. Yeah, completely.
But I still think
very tragic.
Yeah. Tragic.
Sorry, Tom.
No,
it is. It's pretty tragic that you had this captain of the 8th Company, the Assault 8th Company, Khan, who was very well kind of seen by his peers, and both mortal and Starty,
and even other legions.
Even other legions. He had a rep.
Yeah, I mean, Sigismund respected him from a fighting point of view. There's several times they duelled, and he said, and even Khan was like, Sigismund's the one man who can sort of challenge. He recognised the duelist prowess basically. And the whole thing about the chains thing. Sort of seeing the World Eaters wear chains around their wrists for the weapons and things like that. It's interesting.
I mean, the dual thing in particular is quite interesting because like in a lot of the stories, it can't he doesn't really partake in the fighting pits in the World Eater uh, holes.
Yeah.
In the holds of the ship, because obviously the World Eaters love fighting, so they're always training and dueling, and they've got these fighting pits, and Khan never really partakes in them because he's just like, I could, if you fight to kill. Why am I just fighting for the
Yeah.
sake of this? So he's always kind of not really, he doesn't really show his prowess unless he really needs to.
No.
And like I said, a bit tragic about Khan because he is this big key figure. But I wouldn't say he's a massive strategist, but he basically has control and tries to keep this in control of his senses, even with the butcher's nails during the heresy. And then he suddenly completely falls from being this strategist, being this tactician, this diplomat, this big figure to, like I said, a madman that not even his blood crazy brothers can trust, because he's just an absolute brute, will just kill everyone. Yeah. And so there's some parallels that I like to think of Khan of like going to like Achilles.
Yeah.
That he's followed by these berserkers that like his key berserkers, and like it's like, well, let's just point him that way and let him kill everything, and the rest of us are going to go that way.
Stay as far away from him as possible because we can't trust that blade. Oh, sorry, axe.
Yeah.
Gorechild.
And Gorechild. Yeah, Gorechild. And on the battlefield in the game, I love running Khan, as you know, in an apocalypse game. Like, you've got to be super heavy, you've got this big formation, big tank, and you've got this little guy. I'm like, I need to get him into combat, because once he's in combat, it's legendary.
He's safe.
Yeah, he's safe in the gore, and he's just brilliant. I absolutely love Khan.
No.
Quite happily, no.
And also, just another thing is, he has a plasma pistol that he can't fire normally. I mean, that just tells you the kind of person you're dealing with here. It's like the overcharge button. I don't need that. Just leave it on overcharge. That's fine.
Yeah, snap it off. Snap that lever off. Safety's up and losers.
Yes.
So another one I'll pick then is Zufar. Zufar the Impaler. He's a 4-year-old model. So Zufar is not born. It's not a born World Eater. He was part of the Stormlord chapter. Who had a battle with the World Eaters. He got very badly wounded, and for some reason, the World Eaters thought, I tell you what, instead of decapitating this guy, we're going to take him on our ship and we're going to basically torture him and turn him into one of us. Then they obviously did that. Zufar then became a Khornate berserker or Terminator. I'm not particularly that sure on it. And became a fully fledged World Eater, who then appeared on Vrax, the Siege of Vrax. It's good for job.
Mm-hmm.
And his warband, the Skull Takers, essentially went around Vrax and got all the other Khornate warbands, challenged them to duels, killed off their leaders, and made a big old Skull Taker warband out of all these smaller groups. And I believe he is working for Abaddon now as one of his lieutenants, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So if anyone knows otherwise, put that in the comments.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know actually, because
he's quite cool. I do like Zufar.
He's a lovely model as well. So I'll just say, I know we'll probably come on to that later, but he is,
Yeah. Well, that is a good segue into the next part.
Because they're a bit light on characters, to be fair. Well, maybe meaningful characters. I mean, that's probably more the better way of looking at it. I think,
I think World Eaters in general, the argument would be in the lore that World Eater characters don't tend to live very long. So no point making the models when you're dead. Because they tend to throw themselves straight into combat rather than hang back and think of a cunning plan. So Tom, talking about Forge World, what Forge World units do you like for World Eaters?
Well, I mean, I don't. Having looked at this just before we started, there's not actually a huge amount to choose from, really. But I mean, the Kaitan's quite nice. You know,
Yep.
I think that it does sort of, sum up kind of Khorne, really, in my opinion. You know, a big walking demon engine with a massive axe, with
Yep.
a big Khorne symbol on it. Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, obviously the Kaitan, I believe it can be used for other legions. Is that correct, or is it
Yeah, of course it
predominantly?
can. Yeah,
But
yeah. I'm pretty sure it can be.
but particularly, I think Kaitan is pretty good for a World Eater unit. I think.
He looks like
Um,
a big berserker.
I think that's kind of the aesthetic for it is nice, and I think it does look good in red, obviously.
Hmm.
Someone I know has got one in red, and blood, red and blood. I mean, yeah, blood red, lots of dripping, all that kind of stuff, and
Blood and blood.
yeah. But I mean, obviously it is a little bit inspired by another model, in a certain other configuration, so
Yep.
to speak. But yeah, I think if I was to get something that I would like to run in a particular arm, I think a Kaitan would be one of my favourite things to get because you know, yeah, the choices you've got, there's not a huge of pure. I have just thought of another one, but I'm not going to say it. So I'll let you say yours.
Okay. So I'm gonna go with the Corn Berserker upgrade kit.
Ooh, okay,
Yeah, we
fair
go.
enough.
Yes,
Okay,
well,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
know what you're probably thinking, which one you're thinking of now. But the Berserker upgrade kit, because as we'll probably get onto in a minute, the old like Tom, you were saying, like you collected World Eaters
Mm,
and you had Berserkers, and that was 20 years ago. Um, and that kit has not changed.
no,
And they just, as
it's a
much as
shame.
I love them,
It's a shame.
yeah, they look really dated now.
Plus they're small.
So
I think
it,
they're too small. I think
yeah,
just the size comparison, they're too small. But sorry,
yeah,
go on.
it's a shame.
Yeah,
So the conversion kit you can obviously add on to the new Chaos Space Marine models, or onto Raptor models, or whatever you want to do, or the bikes, and make
mm.
your World Eater armor have a bit more character. And
Yeah.
there are very nice bits on there. The shoulder pads are nice, the heads are good. It's a really nice kit. So that's going to be one of my ones I'm going to pick. You want to pick another one,
Well, I
Tom?
was. This is probably. I don't know if this is one you're thinking of, but I actually thinking about the brass scorpion actually.
That was what I thought you
Yeah,
were thinking.
yeah, because it just came to me, and I'm just thinking, do you know what? That is such a great model as well. But it's one of these things you kind of forget about it because you very rarely see it on a table, really. But actually, it is a fantastic model, and if
Yeah.
you're going for a corn army, I think it would fit it perfectly because it is just
Hmm.
about getting forward, but having a little bit of sting in the tail because I believe that's a gun. There you go. So
It is a gun.
yeah, but then
Yeah.
having lots of attacks from all your claw. Yeah, it just it
Yeah.
and the look of it is pretty awesome in my opinion. I mean, it
Yeah.
would be
Yeah.
horrible to
It's really
paint
unique. Yeah. A
because
really unique kit.
lots of trim. Dom loves trim.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, epic chaos. You gotta love trim. You're not doing your trim. You're not doing chaos.
No, no.
Um, yeah, no, the brass copy is really cool. Like, I
Yeah,
think it's got 3d6 charge,
yeah, it's got some ridiculous stuff.
so
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Um, yeah, and then for me, then,
you go first this time.
between between two, um, I am gonna pick the Blood Slaughterers.
Oh, blood
You know,
slaughterers. Okay.
yeah, they're like little beetles,
Mm.
and they might not be that world three, but they're more corn demon. But I think there's a nice mix between the two, and I think they're really cool. They're like a bit like the brass scorpions, on where
Yeah.
they're very unique. You
Yes.
don't see that model anywhere else. You don't go, oh well, that was a dreadnought, or that was that.
No.
It's
No.
like
No.
that
No.
is what it is. There's nothing else that's near a blood slaughterer, and they're cool little models that just look horrible. Like if you went up against one, you'd be like, it's just blades.
It's just
And it's
a
got a
rolling.
harpoon gun.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like,
Come over
I'm
here.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be my Forge World model. So
Yeah.
yeah, they've got a few things on Forge World, which is quite nice. And
I
of
think I
course they
think
are
with I think with World Eaters though, when you're sort of talking Forge World and Games Workshop to a certain extent, sometimes you kind of have to think what would fit with your army of a World Eater
yes,
army because you don't necessarily have things that are dedicated to being a World Eater, but you have to sort of take in thing that they do have access to demons as well. And there's lots of nice demon models that do fit a Khorne army because essentially you kind
yeah,
of go from World Eaters to being a Khorne/World Eater army. because they draw all this stuff together with them because obviously
Yeah,
blood for the blood god and all that. It's all very cornate, and that's kind of the feeling you go with. So
yeah, definitely, mate. Definitely. Yeah, I can agree more with that. Good point. So we've done Forge Work. So Games Workshop.
you
What
pick your
do
first one this
Games
time.
Workshop?
Go on.
Well, so I'm gonna pick Khan.
You're gonna pick Khan. Fair enough. Cool.
Yeah, because he's a resculpt of the classic
Yeah.
sculpt, and the resculpt is just nice, just dynamic. He looks pretty uber, and yeah, I really like Khan. I think he's such a nice model. And like I said before, playing him on a game, like he's got very dynamic pose.
Looks like he's got
He's got
motion. Looks like he's got motion,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
nice.
exactly, yeah, and he's loyal, very loyal to the original sculpt, and he definitely could stick up alongside some of the newer sculpts for other armies, and you'd go, yeah, you can stand tall next to these guys. So yeah, I'm going to stay with Khan.
Okay. So you want one of mine now, do you?
Yeah,
Well, I do have a couple. I'm going to go with the one that I think is more related to World Eaters. I do have another one which is kind of maybe you could bring in, but I think the Lord of Skulls for me is a pretty World Eatery unit because I mean it may as well be powered on blood if I remember correctly.
it is.
So I mean,
Yeah,
it's a demon engine, and and
hmm
its primary focus is to move forward, fire its chest cannon and the massive flaming weapon as well. Is it the Gore Storm? Is that right? Is it Gore Storm?
yeah, Gorestorm. Yeah,
Yeah. I can't remember which one. They've got so many weird
you got the
names sometimes.
Skull Hurler as
Skull
well.
Hurler, and they've got but and also it's got the axe because it's very reminiscent of the Kaitan, but on a tracked bed
Yeah,
essentially. So
yeah,
with
definitely.
vats of blood on the back, it's one of those things. It's and lots of skulls. I mean,
Mm.
its little thing at the front, has skulls. So I mean,
Skulls everywhere.
it's skulls for the skull throne, and
Yeah,
love
yeah, or for the skull. Yeah, full
yeah,
skulls.
yeah,
Skulls have to be somewhere.
exactly,
Yeah, it's very cool actually. I'd say I've got one and absolutely love it. It's a very cool model, and especially with some of the new rules coming out for Chaos, it's got some like good stuff you can use with them. I think there's something become quite popular. Um, I've seen a couple of lists where you just run three of them. Um, like imagine three Lord of Skulls are going. Oh.
I mean, you must remember back in the day when they used to be 888 points as well,
Yeah,
just
love
because
that
they were
theme.
corn.
Yeah,
Even
like
though,
come on, why?
even though you're
What's that about?
overpaying for,
Yeah,
overpaying dramatically, like I've got to take one, and it's just like
yeah. No,
that's
they're
half my
cool. I
army
love
gone.
them. Yeah, so they've got some good stuff for them.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I like it, Tom. Good choice. Um, so, right, I'll take this one for the team then. I'll say Corn Berserkers. I
Oh,
don't particularly,
yeah.
like I said in the Forge World one, I prefer the conversion kit to the
Mm.
Berserkers. They haven't, they're not that great anymore. They've got a couple of cool little bits in the kit. They've got a couple of running legs, and some of the helms are quite cool. The rest of it, yeah, not
They
great.
just look dated. They look dated.
Yeah,
It's
it's a
it's a shame
shame,
because the unit
but
the unit's nice, but yeah.
they were one of the first plastic decent multi-part kits. So
True.
they've got a good heritage to them, and they've brought a lot to the table for the whole model range. The aesthetics of World Eaters is definitely there, and yeah, they've done a lot for the team. So for that, I'll put them there. Quite
Nice.
for the actual way they look, probably not so much.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's it. So if someone wanted to collect a World Eater army, Tom, what would you recommend them doing?
Well, I thought we covered this earlier, did we not?
So what? How would they start collecting a World Eater army?
Start collecting. I'm sorry. I do
Yeah,
apologise. I mean, there isn't really a start collecting kit, is there, for these guys now? I don't believe. So
yeah,
you kind of got to go kind of with your own kind of feeling on the matter. I mean, I think personally, as the way I start most armies is I start with the troops section slash infantry because that's kind of just how I feel you naturally go. Unless you're doing a tank army, of course, because that'd be rather stupid. But um, but berserkers in my opinion would be first thing. Getting a few squads of berserkers I think would be the first part of and then getting your and obviously painting them up to sort of get your red theme down because obviously I think painting berserkers and also any core and armies actually probably a bit more difficult than it seems, because obviously you just think you slap red on, but that kind of bit boring if you don't get it kind of right. I think I think there's like definitely brass and red, and there's some, you can do some nice cutscenes, but and then picking up either an iconic leader like Khan obviously is a really good starting point for that army, or yeah, or stick or or you can go slightly more elite and get a Terminator Lord with some Terminators. That's a good I think that's a good starting point for any army really for berserkers, and then then you sort of go from there. That's how I would personally do it. Because I think once you've got that in, you've had a little look at them, you can then decide how you want to go to some of the more fringe units, because obviously the fringe units where you kind of bring in stuff like demons, things like that, you kind of depends on how you want to play it, I suppose. That's the thing. That's my feeling on it anyway.
Yeah, that's very cool, Tom. Yeah, nice. So yeah, I think you've pretty much got all the bits there.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, like I said, I've got World Eater Army at the moment, and but I am probably thinking of really boosting the rank there, and so I will be introducing new bits. I'm probably getting some characters. I'm going to convert them up and make it like a gladiator army just for the characters, just charge. So with that in mind, like how I'm thinking of doing it is having some cultists as my troops to take a bit of flack away from my characters, protect them the best I can. And like we said earlier, when you're playing them, it's probably a good idea to get some rhinos. So you can actually get your men in combat, because they're not going to win against Tau by using their bolt pistols.
No.
So yeah, that's my recommendation.
Fair enough.
So Codex, pretty good idea. Oh, and before we forget, Faith and Fury. The Faith and Fury book's got some great stuff for World Eaters.
Oh yeah, so yeah, specifically because obviously they add a lot of rules to think it's a good start. Yeah, I was getting too focused on the models. It's like Khan charging towards its target.
Yeah, point and charge. Yeah, so cool stuff. Like obviously, Demon Princes are quite good for World Eaters as well. You get the increase of tax because you're Corn. You get the increase of tax with your Demon Prince, a World Eater, and you give them a couple of claws to get extra attacks. You can get a lot of attacks for Demon Prince claws being in the World Eaters. Yeah, so pretty cool stuff. So I think we have covered everything we possibly can on the World Eaters tonight. Well, everything we can in this short video.
Yeah, in this video, I think.
So hopefully some of you might go out and will buy a World Eater army, or we've lured you in to the eightfold path. Do it, blood for the blood god. So guys, if you want to see another video like this, please put a comment below what faction you'd like to see next. We enjoy doing this, don't we?
Well, yeah, I'm actually getting quite into these, if I'm totally honest. Yeah, it's
cool.
It's been good fun.
Fuel us with blood.
Yeah.
And
hobby blood.
Below.
Hobby blood.
Yeah. Hobby blood. Put a suggestion below what faction you'd like us to do, and we will definitely cover it. Definitely. So this is Dom and
Tom
from BlackToad Studios, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Take care, everyone.